This is the Fitzy and Whipper with Kate Ritchie podcast.
Multiple deaths following several stabbings.
And as soon as the gunshots went off, that was when everyone just ran into the shops.
Very chaotic scenes here at Bondi Junction.
Absolutely it is. And we are joined right now. There's a makeshift memorial that's been set up, of course, at Bondi Junction, as we recognise the tragedy that played out on Saturday. Michelle Stephenson is down there. Michelle, thank you for making your way down there this morning.
No problem.
Obviously, people are gathering, flowers are being laid, and there's tears and moments. To stand still and have a look back at what happened here as we think of the victims.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, we just had a little girl dropping some flowers off. She was in her school uniform. I can tell you it's quite eerie. I mean, this is normally hustling and bustling just as people are getting to work. We do have a large police presence at this moment, but we have heard that the police have handed it back over to Westfield. It is no longer a crime scene. So whenever they decide to open that up, we will find that out, hopefully in the coming days. But, you know, this is a community that is being completely rocked. I live in this community. Like, you'd be hard pressed to find anyone who has not been affected by this. My young son was on level 6 at a friend's birthday party when it was all going on. He just managed to get out. Cops were running past him. Wow. You know, and I just keep thinking if it was 15 minutes later, because it was nearby to where it all kind of transpired.
Of course. You know, you think too, Michelle, the situation of the timing of your son, but also whether the incident involved him or whether they were even to see something. We saw the footage of the father who covered the eyes of his daughters as they walked away. Another powerful image.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is all of his friends. They're all moving into high school. They hang out at the mall on the weekends. They were trapped. We have friends whose children were trapped in stairwells. Another friend, his daughter works at Lululemon where it all happened. She was locked in a storeroom. She had to step over bodies to leave. I mean, she's 16. This is stuff that these kids will not be able to get over. I mean, it is just affecting the community. I'm trying not to get a little upset about it because this is really affecting a lot of us who live here. But, you know, we've heard some great stories as well. As it was all happening, their cars were locked, right? So people were offering lifts. People were trying to get everyone out of there. My other girlfriend who manages a store, you know, unfortunately was there witnessing Dawn, who passed away. She said it was horrific. So these are things that are going to be etched in Sydney-siders' minds for a very long time. And it's very reminiscent of almost 10 years ago, the Lindt Cafe siege. We've got these flowers. They're just really building up here. People are stopping by. There's even a table where people can leave condolence messages. It's just you're just really seeing people come together.
Any more information on Joel Cauchi, the attacker? And has his family come out and spoken, Michelle?
Yes.
Do you know?
Yeah, so his family released a statement saying, you know, he'd had mental health issues since he was 17 and he'd really battled with that. They harbour no ill will towards the police officer who shot him. I think they're trying to piece it together. They were the ones who actually saw the vision of him and came forward to the police, reached out to the police and said, "That's my son." You know, we do know the sixth person who was murdered has been identified. It was a Chinese student, so we're just seeing that come in. You know, just the faces, the refugee who was on his first day working as a security guard, you know, trying to protect people and do the job, just tragically losing his life 1 year in this country, escaping Pakistan. I mean, this is just, there's so many stories coming out, and I think it's going to reverberate for a very long time.
Michelle, you're right. I mean, to think of that, the family sorry, I've forgotten his first name, the attacker,
Joel Cauchi.
To think of the family sitting at home watching this unfold live on TV, not knowing that it was their son, and then having to make a phone call saying, "I can identify that person. That's my son." My God.
And I know this is going to be bigger issues where we talk about mental health and how we deal with mental health in this country. I know those are the conversations when we kind of get over this a little bit more. We can have those wider conversations. But let me tell you, there's people right now walking up, more people dropping flowers off. Just the scene here is a somber one. I mean, this is a major hub, and we're not seeing it as active and lively as it normally is.
No,
and I've got to say, that's eerie.
Yeah, I think it's very valuable to have something like that there at Bondi Junction today.
Yes, and it's so beautiful to see that, you know, people are really coming together.
Thank you, Michelle. We know it's a tough one this morning. Kat, I know you had some back and forth with some friends that were in the area at the time.
No, I did. Well, I mean, the first phone call I received from my dad was to check that I wasn't there, because it is a local shopping precinct for me. I randomly was calling a girlfriend who I was meant to be having dinner with that evening, 2 girlfriends in fact, and both of those women, their teenage daughters were at the centre. And I think what is incredibly frightening is that centre was probably full of lots of young people, young kids hanging out at the mall, as you do on a Saturday afternoon, and parents not being able to check in and know their whereabouts, but seeing things unfold on the news. I know that one girlfriend in particular, she just started receiving text messages from her daughter about 3:40 saying, "Please do not call me," which had been an instruction from the people that she was with. "Please don't call me. There's a gunman in the centre. The whole place is in lockdown. We don't know what to do, but we're locked somewhere." And that was the only communication that they had received. Of course, they didn't then want to put in a phone call because the instruction had been...
How do you not help yourself?
Not to call. And then when they finally did make contact, all they could hear of their young, 14-year-old daughter on the other end of the line was the evacuate signal and the sound of her running. So that period of time where there was not a great deal of information, I think everybody's minds were running wild. And as you said, everybody checking in to make sure that everyone was okay. But I think that no matter who you are or where you live in Sydney, there's someone that you know, there was someone that you did check in on, and someone that you were worried about. I do think that yesterday generally was a very sad, sombre day, certainly a flat day for everybody wondering what could have been and how everyone was travelling.
Try to fathom what's going through a man's mind when that is happening, and this is the thing that you just can't... You can't understand how he can avoid other people and then attack others. But it is a sickness. We have spoken about this before, and he wasn't completely sane. But for those people to witness that and not know where to go, Michelle, who works on our show, is down at Bondi Junction now. There has been flowers being laid all morning still. Michelle, thank you for joining us again. Michelle, is the precinct going to be open today? Will it be open, or is it still closed?
Look, we have no word of that. We do know that it is no longer a crime scene, but so it has been handed back over to the centre management. Look, I can only imagine it will at least be a couple of days. I know that individual stores have sent out messages saying that they won't be opening for a while yet. It's still very much a strong police presence here. There's a lot of police around. Not as many people, but we are seeing a lot of people stopping, dropping flowers off, having a moment's silence, just really reflecting on what transpired over the weekend. You know, it's just a tragedy that has really kind of rocked this community. It is a community that is kind of very solid. And I know, Kate, you were just speaking about all the messages. We set up like a phone tree. We were just making sure everyone was accounted for, that we knew of. And at that point, we were hearing that it was a gunman. It was an active shooting. Yeah. So, and that's what happens. As soon as something of this magnitude kind of transpires, you just think the worst, and the information that gets out there immediately it can be quite frightening. But like the children, they're the ones who are going to have to kind of face this. I know my son's school has already sent out an email for counselling services that are going to be provided for children who may be affected. The local high school as well. Lots of children were up here. They were caught in stairwells. They were taking photos as well. They have vision that they're going to see this. So in some ways, it's kind of good that school is out for the next 2 weeks, because it means, they're going to be able to not be at school talking about it. Michelle,
can I ask, we talk about Police Inspector Amy Scott. She's been she's been with the force for 19 years. She was doing she was on duty, I believe, doing routine service for alcohol checks at one of the local establishments nearby when it came through on the radio. Do we know much more about Amy and what she did?
No, we don't know much more, but we do know, and you've seen that vision of just this woman running toward lone police officer running towards Joel because she knew that there was something wrong. I mean, it's just unfathomable, the bravery that would take just to kind of get there and, just being forced, because he was there with a knife, and being forced to kind of take him down, and then offering assistance, rendering CPR, trying to see if he's okay, but then realising that there was nothing more that she could do, and then moving on to other victims to try and help them. And we've heard those stories. They're just incredibly harrowing. I mean, just the young mum, just what it would take. Your 9-month-old has been stabbed. You've been stabbed. Just what it would take to hand that young child over to someone else and just say save her. And we know that she's still in intensive care. There's about 5 people still in intensive care of the 8 that went to hospital. 3 have already been discharged. So we're still hoping that there's going to be some good news for that young bub, but it's just awful. It's just incredible.
I do think that is in particular one of the stories that people thought a lot about yesterday, with a young mother who had just been back to work after taking her maternity leave, and for something like this to happen for her and for all of the families, really, it's just so awful.
Well, you're right. That does leave, as you mentioned, quite a lot of the injured still in hospital with their stories to be released. So no doubt we'll find out a lot more. Michelle, thank you so much. Not an easy one this morning. Appreciate your time.
Fits in Whipper with Kate Ritchie is a Nova podcast. For more great shows like this, download the Nova Player via the App Store or Google Play.
The Nova Player.